Sorry we weren't here yesterday, but we are live. Welcome aboard. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is Joe DeLeone. Good evening, sir. How are we doing?
Doing pretty good. It feels weird doing it on a Sunday. We did do that during the season a couple times last year, so
we did.
Excited to be here. Excited to be talking college football.
We were talking off air. We might be moving it to Sunday. You know, we might be moving one of our shows to Sunday, doing a recap of college football. I like that a lot. If you're listening to us on the replay or if you're listening to us live now, let us know if you'd like us doing shows on Sunday instead of a pregame on Saturday. That probably would be kind of nice. We'll talk about that. But big show in store for you here today. Having grown men that run recruiting boards arguing with other, with college kids, I guess is really prompted this week. So, look, Joe, I will tell you, it's really starting to pick up. I mean, we got camp this week. Pretty much every team reports this week. So it's live. I mean, we're about a month away. Actually, we are a month away almost from college football starting, and so it's here. So we'll do a deep dive, conference realignment, Colorado. I mean, we've talked more about Colorado on the show, not named Dion, which is nuts. Realignment. I told you about Arizona. Then it was started reporting out of Arizona that they could be realigning. I do think Utah is going to get in that mix, but Utah don't care. Utah does not care. So we'll talk about a little realignment, but we'll do a Texas deep dive today. You know what, Joe? We're back. They're back.
Finally, dude, we've been listening to that drop for years now, and we get to actually dive deep on them and talk about them. I know this is going to be a scathing review. I know for a fact from both of us, this is going to be a scathing review. I have a take that is going to sound crazy, but is going to make a lot of sense, and I can't wait to get to it.
Well, listen, I've told you this, not just about Texas, but any coach. Joe, how many years are we going to let Sarkeesian not win 10 games before we say, hey, he's got to go out there and prove it? I mean, just because it's the University of Texas does not change my opinion. Look, man, you got to be able to come up to the plate and do some things. Now, they've added a lot of key pieces. You can't take away from them getting Adonai Mitchell. They got Anthony Hill, the big linebacker. Gavin Holmes, Jalen Catalon transfers in. A lot of people like yourself like Quinn Ewers. I'm not a believer in Quinn Ewers, to be honest with you. But we'll talk about all that. It just doesn't stop. Like, if this were anybody else, would we be saying the same exact things? The problem is, though, for everybody else in their conference, they do play in the Big 12, which kind of sucks. I mean, let's call it what it is. So they do have the most talent in the Big 12, but doesn't mean that they will win it.
Exactly, and I think that's a good precursor for the discussion that we're going to have talking about Texas. But there is never – every single year, Texas is always the most polarizing program to talk about for very good reason, because the fan base is rabid. The programs always have really good talent on them. It's just a matter of if they actually bring it to the football field, and that's kind of what I'm going to get at when we get to it in a little bit.
So we will talk about it. It was interesting. Look, one thing I'm going to throw in here very quickly, okay? Mm-hmm. What about Hugh Freeze? Now, he's
been cooking.
5-star from Georgia.
Yeah.
Then he flipped another 5-star from Alabama. Hey, now. Hey.
Dude, he's cooking right now. The what he has done, and I know that our friend Jake Crane has been tweeting about it because he's an Auburn guy. They have been getting after it right now. Hugh Freeze has been flipping a lot of big-name recruits. He's been getting a lot of guys to commit. I have said this, and I said this as soon as that hire happened. Remove all the other accusations. We know what happened. Remove all the off-the-field stuff. The guy's a really good recruiter. He's a really good football coach. He's going to figure it out as long as he doesn't run into any issues.
Well, I mean, look, it's interesting when a program has alignment, okay? When a program gets alignment, boosters, AD, coach, and the coach knows how to wheel and deal, not monetized wise. I'm just saying, You know, I mean, Joe, that kid could have, and now the KJ Bolden kid, like now it's trending that kid might be now another 5-star going to Auburn. Look, man, a lot of people said, well, Hughes was doing illegal stuff at Ole Miss, which he kind of was. What's he doing now?
And now it's legal minus the hookers part.
Yeah, minus Mia Khalifa. It's all, it's all legal now.
A lot of people forget that, and Ed Orgeron over the past 10 years has been described as one of the best recruiters that we've seen in a long time. A lot of people forget that Hugh Freeze comes from the Ed Orgeron school of recruiting. He was a part of that Ole Miss staff. He was one of his best recruiters when he was at Ole Miss, and now he's running the ship again at his own program. He knows how to recruit. The guy is a great recruiter, and he's back in the SEC, which is, again, when that move happened where they hired him, I said that everybody should be on the lookout because he can do some damage.
Well, he's certainly doing damage in recruiting, but we will look. Here's the thing. Okay. When the playing portion starts, that's when you're going to really know how all this is going to transpire. Because kids,
we got to give him a year. We got to give him a year, though.
No, I'm talking about like if they go 6-6, kids are going to flip. Okay, it's just it's going to happen. All right, like let's not get that twisted. All right. So let's get rolling. We do have some comments. Michael says Sunday show better than Saturday show. So
I have a feeling a lot of people are going to suggest that.
Yeah, I do agree. Chris H says Yellowwood is dropping them bags. Yes, Yellowwood is the big company for Auburn. They must be dropping them bags, dog.
Is that the collective or is that like a booster?
No, it's a business. Company? It's like a big wood business. Just gonna continue to throw this out there. Just gonna continue to throw this out there to my LSU people. Okay. I thought Brian Kelly couldn't recruit.
Dude, I am waiting for, and I know we're about to get to the break here. If a certain somebody commits, I cannot wait for the spree that you're about to go on. It warms my heart watching you talk shit. I will say that.
I will tell you, it is going. It is. Videos will be posted. Things will be like they're gonna have to ban me. They're gonna have to ban me. Duncanville, Caden Durham, if he hasn't announced yet, the running back out of Texas, he's going to drop his top 3 if he hasn't done so already. But, LSU trending for another back, LSU trending for Colin Simmons, it feels like. So, if they do land who they're supposed to land and he has 3 back-to-back-to-back top 5 classes,
no one can say anything anymore.
I'm going to go nuclear. And you know what?
Wait.
And Joe, here's just the truth. Mm-hmm. It will be the best thing to ever happen for Notre Dame because it will show them you got to do what you got to do in recruiting to get these kids here. Like, I get Joe, listen, there are a lot of places you're not going to agree with this, but I'm tired of hearing the academic standards because here's the truth. They don't have to do that for athletes. The NCAA gives permission for players that have a 2.3 with a 21 ACT to get into any school in the country. Okay. They can go wherever they want to go. Okay. Like there's not an excuse. So you got to do what you got to do. Okay. I'm tired of the academic excuse.
The academic thing's never gonna change. But their willingness to dole out money for NIL and their commitment to giving out money for NIL, I think needs to step up. And I think that the new athletic director is going to be more supportive of the decision-making of Marcus Freeman than what Swarbrick did. And I know we don't need to go fully down this rabbit hole right now, but I really, really think that they're going to be in a much better position. The academic thing is never going to come off the table, though. But I agree with you. If Brian Kelly succeeds as much as he does, it is proof to the new athletic director that things need to be done differently. Again, not removing the academic restrictions, but giving full support to the head coach to do whatever he needs to do to get guys to commit.
See, this is what I was just talking about. There he is. Durham just said top 3 LSU, Oklahoma, Aggie. Brent Venables also getting some some mainline recruits.
Is
All
Durham not committing? Is he only releasing?
No, it's just a top
three?
three. Yeah, that's why I'd put on my board it's just going to be a top three.
So these top threes are you get the top 20s, the top 5s. It's ridiculous, but
I don't mind a top 5, top 3, top 10. But I saw a recruit the other day that did a top 25, and I'm like, what are we doing?
He's just kind of trying to flex nuts on everybody. Like, hey, look at how many offers I have.
Basically, top 3's cool. You know what? I'm cool with that. Top 5, top 10, I'm cool with that. You doing top 25s, dog? Somebody needs to get in your corner and tell you to calm down, man. Calm down. All right.
Exactly.
Everybody do us a favor, though, by hitting the like and share to all those social media groups. If you're on Facebook, share to all those social media pages as well. Wherever you listen to us on podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. If you're watching us on Fubo TV, welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right, Joe, let's get to our first break. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. We're going to get into a little bit of Texas. I have a feeling we're going to clip something, and people are going to get pissed like they did with me about a month ago. Who cares? Here we go. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. Texas isn't, though, but maybe they could. I guess it depends, Joe, what you constitute Texas being back. What would Texas have to do for them to be back in your eyes?
10 wins. I always feel that 10 wins is that.
Is that 10 wins in the regular season, or is that 10 wins
in the regular season? Okay. I always see 10 wins is a make or break marker for, I know we throw this word around very loosely, a blue blood program. 10 wins is a really good marker of a successful season or a non-successful season. Right. Unless you're a team that has expectations to go to a national championship like Georgia this upcoming year. If you win 10 games or more, it's a good season.
So look, the thing for me is simple. When a program's back, you got to do it more than 1 year. Okay? It's different for different coaches. Okay? It's different for different programs. When Urban Meyer went to Ohio State, they were instantly back. Instantly. Without question, they were back. When I think that Nick Saban went to Alabama, they were back. When Brian Kelly to LSU, they were back. When Lincoln Riley went to USC with their standards, they were back. The problem that I have, okay, is that's not what Sark is. We make all these things about Sark. He is one of, if not the best play caller in college football. You can't take that away from him. The problem that I have with Sark, though, is pretty simple. How many years does he have to go being a head coach and not having 10 wins? See, the media, I was talking about this the other day, and somebody's like, wait, he never got 10 wins at Washington? And I'm like, no, he didn't get 10 wins at Washington. He was
barely there. He wasn't there that long.
There. He didn't get 10 wins at USC. He hasn't gotten to the 10-win mark at Texas. The first time that Steve Sarkeesian has a 10-win season will be his first. He's a great play caller, okay? You did the same exact thing with Tom Herman. You went and got a really good play caller with a little bit of head coaching experience. If they were in the SEC this year, you wouldn't be back because they would get beat. Look, every year we go through this same monologue over and over and over and over again about Texas being back. Now, I will say, I do think that they're the most talented team in the Big 12. I don't think it's remotely close because I look at them, Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell are going to be one of the best two wide receiver duo in the country if they have a good enough quarterback.
Yeah.
I look at what they have going on at tight end with Sanders and Helm and Davis. I think that they're pretty damn good at tight end. They got Kelvin Banks returning at left tackle. They have Cole Hurston. They have Christopher Jones. They're really built along the offensive line. They're going to be a pretty damn good team. But the thing that I'm going to ultimately, and I think what the country's ultimately going to look at them at, what do you do in week 2 against Alabama? If Alabama, with a down, quote-unquote, roster or team this year, if the score is 42-20, Joe, and they get beat bad, then what? Then what do we start talking about? They have talent. Can they put it all together? Coaching, play calling, can they put it all together? I've said this on previous shows. I'll continue to say this. Texas and Texas A&M are the most intriguing teams in the country to me, based out of my fandom. Okay, I have a couple of them that I'm really interested in, but both of those Texas schools have a lot of talent, or on paper talent. Well, it's time to show it, and it's time for them to show that they can do something. But, Joe, I'm not confident that they win the Big 12. I don't think anybody remotely can come out here and say, I'm 100% confident that they're going to be one of the top 2 teams. Because you have a team like TCU. Joe, TCU has had better program stability than Texas has.
Yes. Yeah.
So at what point? Baylor, for all the shit that they've been through, Joe, they've won more Big 12 title games the last 10 years in Texas, if I'm not mistaken, or 8. Regardless, how are you not going to win the Big 12 title game and for me to come in here and say that you're back? It doesn't take 1 year. It takes multiple years. So I look at them as a team, and what's sad is, Joe, we don't talk about them enough as a team. We talk about, are they back, and it's Sark and all this kind of stuff. And the last thing I will say is this. Y'all can have faith in Quinn Ewers, but the best quarterback right now on that roster, college quarterback right now on that roster, what do you think I'm about to say?
Arch Manning.
No.
Who?
I think it's Malik Murphy.
Really?
Yeah. Dude, did you not see him go absolutely nuts? He made Quinn Ewers look like he was throwing paper mache.
I don't want to dive too far down that rabbit hole. I want to talk on some of the other things that you said, because there's a really big part to, because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know enough about Malik Murphy to provide enough. I think that Quinn Ewers is the guy to get them.
He might be Anthony Richardson on a more talented team.
Again, I don't know enough about him.
He's not that fast, but Joe, when you watch him run, it is and throw. Joe, you're talking about a former shortstop. You're talking about a kid. Like, it's not.
Maybe they work him in as a Wildcat guy if that ends up.
It's not Jalen Milroe. Okay, he's not Jalen Milroe. He's more Anthony Richardson than he is Jalen Milroe. Is that
okay? Yeah, that makes sense.
He's more KJ Jefferson than, God bless his heart, Jalen Milroe.
So, Blake, a lot of what you said there, I think we're in alignment here. I think that this Texas team in 2023, in terms of athletic talent on paper, names, Jalen Ford, Quinn Ewers, Jatavian Sanders, all of these guys, former 5-stars, projectable, highly draftable draft prospects. They have a top 5 roster in all of college football in terms of talent. But when you dive deep, when you actually watch the film and watch these guys individually and you break them down, they are very underdeveloped. They have not been properly coached up and developed. A guy like Jalen Ford is a really good example because he is a hell of a linebacker. But I watched him this past week, and the guy's decision-making is like 3 steps too slow for him to be an elite football player.
I agree with
I think that epitomizes the whole team, Blake, and everything that you just talked about there. Sark has not done a good enough job developing this talent. So why am I going to sit here in 2023 and make a decision based on the talent and saying that this team is going to be elite and they're going to win the Big 12 and that they're going to put up a fight against Alabama, when Sark, in his whole time as a head coach, his track record has been not properly coaching and developing talent. I don't have faith in that at all. And I'm not going to put my chips on the table for a guy who has no to little success rate of developing guys. And I think, again, Quinn Ewers is another player who you talked about, fits really well into this mix, where he's got one of the biggest arms in the country. He's got one of the best, just pure arm talent, throwing the football on the run, moving, one of the best arms in the country. But if we try to place him in the rankings of top quarterbacks, he doesn't fit anywhere in the top 15 because he is mistake prone. He's incredibly mistake prone, and he's very inaccurate.
Highly inaccurate.
Highly inaccurate. There are so many positives to this team, and if we just look at all these players, it's like, wow, look what they can be. I just don't think that they get there. They have not done that successfully in any of the time that Sark has been there.
You know, I look at a guy like Mac Jones. Just stay with me on this one, okay? Just stay with me, okay? Sark helped develop him. I look at a guy like Mac Jones, where Mac decision-making got better under Sark, but he was always a pretty accurate dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was always pretty accurate. I think like Burrow comes to mind. You know, another guy that comes to mind is in college, let's not go pros, is Baker Mayfield. You know, I look at a guy from year 1 to year 2. Like, I look at Deshaun Watson. He might have thrown 17 interceptions in the second year, but his completion percentage went up. Why? Because, yeah, he made 17 bad decisions, okay? But he was still highly accurate. I have not seen enough from Quinn Ewers that he can convince me that he can be an accurate dude. Now, we turn on the film. See, here's the crazy part, Joe, is everybody's like, oh, well, look what he was doing against Alabama. Okay. Well, what did he do for the rest of the season? Everybody's like, well, he was hurt. Joe, everybody's hurt. Like, it's the biggest thing. When everybody says that, it just confirms to me that you've never played. Joe, you know and I know, by week 1 to week 13, week 1, you probably feel the best. Week 13, you need 3 or 4 weeks to regroup yourself because you've been through so many car crashes, okay? Everybody's hurt. It doesn't make them bad decision makers. It doesn't make them more inaccurate. When I watch Washington, Joe, he had a month to recover, okay? Quinn Ewers had a month to recover before the Washington game. He had one of the best receivers in the country, one of the best tight ends in the country. Michael Penix outplayed him, and they had less talent. Can he develop is going to be a massive question for me. I don't know if he's the dude. And if they want to go where they think that they can go, it's always on the backs of quarterbacks. I know that you'll say Stetson Bennett didn't. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But historically, teams that are really dominating, they just have really solid quarterback play. I think you can say Stetson was solid because he did lead them, and he was a solid signal caller. He was a good game manager, whatever you want to call him.
Yes.
But, Joe, you go from Stetson Bennett the last 2 years, Mac Jones, you got Joe Burrow, you have Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. What did all of them do? All of those teams playing for national titles or winning national titles is simply due to one thing. They had dynamic quarterback play at times, or a guy that can manage enough and do enough and not make mistakes. I'm sorry to tell everybody on planet Earth, right now to me, until I can see it, I have to see it, Quinn's not that dude, man. He's not that. I don't care that he's got Zen in his pocket at media days. That actually, you're wearing jeans at media days? Like, you're wearing jeans at media? What are we doing here? There are decision-making things that I just start at, like, why? Again, when I put them, though, Joe, on this pedestal on the Big 12, who's going to beat them, though? There's not a team right. Do I think that they'll get beat by somebody in the Big 12? Yes. But it's a toss-up. There's no team, there's no reason whatsoever Texas should lose any game in the Big 12. And I think everybody knows that, but they will.
There shouldn't be any games that they lose, but I just think that there are so many more better coached teams in the Big 12. I think that Oklahoma is a better coach team than Texas. And I know that, the comments are going to be littered with people saying in the clipped version of this, they're like, oh, what the hell am I talking about? They won 6 games last year. I have more faith in Brenton Venables to coach up that defense and to coach up that team than I do for Steve Sarkeesian. And to what we're talking about, like TCU lost a bunch of guys, but at the same time, they outplayed expectations last year. Like who is to say that they can't not go back and run the table and win the Big 12 again, but beat Texas again in 2023? Kansas State is another team that is just really well coached, that has lesser athletes, not as many big name recruits, but it's just really well coached.
But they're developing all those dudes.
Yes. Joe. All of these other teams are developing talent. I feel like Texas has a bunch of 5 stars and high 4 stars running around that didn't progress since high school. There has been no growth. But the one thing that I want to just continue the point that you were talking about, if we're to predict what leads to them being successful, just to kind of push back on poo-pooing them for a second, because we do that so much on this show. I think that their success is going to all come down to what Quinn Ewers does. It's all going to come down to, does Quinn Ewers play at an average to slightly above average level? Because last year he was below average in a number of games. I mean, we can go pull up his completion percentage. We can pull up the amount of interceptions that he threw, especially the way that he played against TCU and Oklahoma State. A lot of really below average games. If he comes out and he plays average to slightly above average, shows some sign of progression, they absolutely can win 10 games. They absolutely can win the Big 12. It's not like the competition is that stiff as we've talked about. But if he stays the same, there is no progression, they're sitting ducks. They're a 9 to 8 win team again, like they were last year.
Well, they're off. If we're going to go down, what do they have to do to have success? Yeah, you have to. You all know that you have to have good quarterback play, really solid, if above average. And even we disagree on this all the time. Even like if he was like Joe, if he was Stetson Bennett, okay, like if Quinn Ewers had the same.
Love bringing up Stetson Bennett.
Well, just hang with me. I'm not trying to get.
I know.
But if Quinn Ewers had around the same exact season statistically that Stetson did a year ago, they're going to win the Big 12.
Yes.
Okay. So 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns. They're going to win the Big 12. The problem, though, is the only way right now that I could see that they win and win at a consistent rate this upcoming year, they're going to have to lean on that offensive line. They got a 5th-year tackle at right tackle. They have one of the best offensive tackles, in my opinion, in Banks at left tackle. They got solid play in the interior. But it's not the problem that I see, though, Joe, that they have right now. Everybody and their mama wants to talk to me about their front 7 and defensive line. Well, the last time you've played teams that are worth a damn, you got dominated up front.
Yeah.
You don't have it. Your edge.
Oh, wait, I will say that.
No, when
that offensive line showed up against Alabama. That offense.
Alabama. They got dominated up front. The all 22 copies don't lie. Come on now.
I don't know if that was a domination, though. I've watched that game.
This is a replay of Kansas State and Texas. You ready? A clapping.
You're right. The amount of big bodies that they have, and they've been hyped up as being one of the best offensive lines in the country. And again, Kelvin Banks is a young football player who is, I think I accidentally said Dylan Brooks earlier, by the way. That's not who I meant to say. I meant to say Kelvin Banks. I don't know why I said Dylan Brooks. But Kelvin Banks is a very talented young offensive lineman. They have the guys. They have all the dudes. And again, it fits the same theme that we're talking about here. The development and them getting to where they need to be to actually physically dominate people. It kind of gives that Ohio State sense where a lot of really highly recruited guys, a lot of really athletic players, but can they put their hand in the dirt and can they run somebody the F over? I don't think so. I don't know if they can do that consistently. I'm also a little not concerned, but I'm wondering who takes the load at running back. Is it Cedric Baxter? Or is it the freshman who ends up being the guy?
Well, they're going to have to. He's going to have to. Okay. But I mean, they have some. It's tough, Joe, because I look at them and I look down their recruiting class. Okay. They did not have a running back in not this class, but the last class, other than him. You're going to have to add depth at that running back position. And do they have enough dynamic playmakers at that position that can do anything besides him?
Well,
I don't think they do.
Right. It doesn't help that Bijan was the best running back in college football, and then Roschon Johnson was maybe the best backup running back in college football. Both those guys were really, really good.
Let's just call it, you're replacing 2 NFL backs.
Yeah, like that's going to be a really difficult task. And to what we're talking about here with Quinn Ewers, if you want him to have a good season, if you want him to play well, you have to alleviate that pressure. You have to be able to run the ball the way that you did in games last year. The other thing, too, that pisses me off, and for some reason, Texas fans didn't like that I pointed this out last year on my channel. I hate the decision-making by Sark in games where when the run game isn't working, he immediately abandons it. And especially more than ever in modern college football, you have to keep going back to it to establish the run. You can't establish that physical upfront mentality if you don't keep trying to run the football. When Quinn tries to do everything, he plays like shit. And that's why he played like shit in a bunch of games last year, because he tries to do everything. He tries to be Patrick Mahomes, and plainly, he's not him. He needs a supporting cast. He needs everything to work well around him. I need more of a commitment to the running game without Bijan and Roschon Johnson for them to be better this year. That was what cost them in a lot of games.
Here's the truth now, too, because when you look at the transfer portal, okay, sometimes it will lie to you. So let me give an example, okay? And you got to be careful with this. I think Colorado is a key mark in this. When you look at what they got in the portal, they had a lot of departures, a lot of depth piece departures, okay? When I look at them from this past season, okay, I look at wide receiver, okay, you add Mitchell, but you lose Ben Ballard, you lose Hudson Card. Okay, well, Hudson Card had experience. What if Quinn Ewers does go down again? You're playing a guy that has 0 experience in Malik or the prodigy himself in Manning. It's not going to bode well. I look at receiver. They did add some key pieces in the freshman, but they added Adonai Mitchell. But they lose Brennan Thompson. They lose Troy. They lose Alexis. They lose Hall, who's still in the portal. I look at them on the offensive line. They lose Garth. They lose Parr. They lose Carrick. They lose Angeloa. So, again, you can have all the talented pieces that you want, but those depth pieces that they had are gone. So everybody's like, oh, well, they had a top 5 transfer portal class. Well, their depth is gone. And they're replenishing it with really young dudes and freshmen. Historically, that doesn't bode well.
No.
So you need, Joe, every time we see a contender, a real contender, what are 3 things that they have? We talked about 1 in solid quarterback play. Number 2, you just got to have dudes. You got to have dudes that will punch somebody in the mouth in the street and slap somebody's grandmama. You need just dogs. Like, don't matter. But the third thing, you need senior depth and leadership. They got young dudes everywhere. And I do think that look, if you get into week 2 against Alabama and you come out of that game, even if you may win with some injuries, you got to turn right around, and you don't have the depth in place. So if anybody wants to do it themselves, you can go down that transfer portal list and watch. Damn, they had 4 depth pieces along the offensive line that left, and they did not replenish it other than freshmen. So that is nobody's talking about that. And I've waited to say that. I've told you weeks on weeks on weeks. You can have, like, what if Kelvin Banks goes down for a week, Joe?
I mean, their offensive line, I actually would argue that their offensive line
Okay,
is
let me
one
pick
of the
another-
better depth. But if they say a Donnie Mitchell or Xavier Worthy, and Xavier Worthy was battling an injury last year, and he's a very slightly framed guy where he could suffer another injury. That's probably the thinnest position group for me is the receiving room.
Okay, well, so receivers, it doesn't matter. I don't care. But
I know what you're
probably
saying.
if they have a buck position in their defense, right?
Uh-huh.
What happens if Baron Sorrell goes down and you got a true a freshman in Tap that's got to come in? There again, you're talking about inexperienced dudes, inexperienced players in that 2 line. You know what happens? I will tell you what happens. We've seen great coaches that have these issues. Urban Meyer, Florida, Ed Orgeron, LSU. I would even make the argument Dabo. Dabo does not have the depth that he once used to have defensively. I look at teams like Texas A&M. Joe, I mean, look, we talk about A&M all the time. They were 8-9 win team win team every year. 8 wins. Well, why did they continue to lose this year? Somebody goes down, they're playing a true freshman, and it does not bode well. Bottom line for me is with them, I look at their schedule. I don't think they're winning week 2. As much as I may not like Alabama as a fan of college, like my team, I don't see them going into Tuscaloosa and taking down Nick. I just don't see it. I think you're going to lose 1 or 2 Big 12 games. It's just where I sit.
Here, before we end up moving on to talk about the realignment stuff, here's the really crazy take to cap us off nicely here. I would hope that Texas fans are realistic and agree with me when I say this. But outside of some of the flaws that we talked about, this team can and should, if we look at them on paper and all those guys progress, should win 10 regular season games or more. I think that in the whole entire season, including postseason bowl games, if they do not exceed 10 wins and they only win 9 or fewer, you need to replace Steve Sarkeesian.
Whoa!
Seriously, we're moving into the SEC. 9 wins, 9 whole season, including your bowl game. If you only win 9 games playing in Big 12 play with this good of a roster, going to the SEC, you're going to get your ass kicked. Start off with a new head coach. Why would you carry that in? That's a failure for this team, for all the hype that we've talked about with this damn team that we've been bashed for talking down on them. For them to not win more than 10 games is an underperformance.
All right, that's a lot to unpack. Let me just say
I think it's only one thing to unpack there. It's pretty straightforward.
Well, you did. I mean, that statement's a lot to unpack. Okay. In reference to, he would be underperforming. Sark would 1,000% be underperforming. For once, Texas has to go on without firing somebody. They got to let him work. If he's going to recruit like that, he's going to have to figure it out. I don't think they should fire him.
They fired other people.
You can't go to the SEC with a new. Well, what now?
They fired other coach. They fired Tom Herman for less, and they gave him less time. Or am I misremembering?
No, you're not. But you know what? I think Florida State and Mike Norvell made a statement to a lot of people last year.
It's a good point. That's a really good counterpoint.
And why you shouldn't fire.
Wait, but they're not jumping to a bigger, more difficult conference.
No, but Florida State did beat 2 SEC teams last year. Actually, and they beat the SEC West champion. You might need to just give him a little bit more time if he's going to recruit. Because I do think ultimately, Sark is smart enough to not continue to run his head into a wall.
But is 9 wins, like, that's not a good season?
Well,
it's not. But
it goes back to what do you consider a good season for them? Let me tell you the truth. If they go 9-3 in the regular season and try to get to a 10th win in the bowl game, I think it's successful.
If they get the 10th win, but what I'm saying is that you only win 8 regular season games and you win your bowl game, or you lose your bowl game with 9. If you go 9-4, that would be 9-4 or less. 9 and 4.
Right.
With the bowl game included. Anything less than 9-4 and less to me is a failure.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it's a failure. And you know what's going to be so funny? Like at some point, dude, Texas fans are going to have to get realistic, because I'm going to tell you, once they take that step into the SEC and they got Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, and Florida in a month, good luck, buddy. Good luck.
That's my whole point, is that if you're not able to
going in there with a new coach doing that.
Yeah, because then you're starting fresh. Also, you're Texas and you're now in the SEC. You don't think that they wouldn't have their pick of whoever they wanted? You don't think that they couldn't do a Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly type move where they just snap somebody up from a...
Well, name the coach.
The one that I said at the beginning when we first started doing the show is I said Sonny Dykes. You could easily pull Sonny Dykes away.
All right, hold on.
You remember I said that. We clipped that.
Hold on. I agree that Sonny Dykes did coach for a national title. I will concede that, obviously. Sonny Dykes is not a Urban Meyer, Brian Kelly, Lincoln.
Okay, wait. Sorry.
All right. So
that was not my intention of that statement, but they could easily pull Sonny Dykes away from TCU. I don't think it would.
Okay, well,
someone said Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's another one. You think they couldn't convince Lane Kiffin to come to Texas?
I think Lane Kiffin in Texas would be the worst mix of all time.
Or
there are too many blondes that wear jean shorts and orange for Lane Kiffin to be in the state of Texas.
What about Kalen DeBoer?
Who?
You don't think they could, the Washington's head coach.
Who?
Kalen DeBoer.
Who?
Kalen DeBoer. Are you kidding me? We're talking. Kalen DeBoer beat Texas in their bowl game last year. All the more reason to hire him.
Who? I don't disagree with that.
What about Dan Lanning? Dan Lanning, you could go and get Dan Lanning.
Well, he just signed a massive contract extension.
You don't think Texas doesn't have that kind of money to pay that buyout?
Are you going to pay that much money, Sark's buyout, and go pay that much?
If you want to win, well, no, Sark doesn't have a long-term deal.
Yeah, but you're still going to owe him $20 million.
Well, how many years are left on his deal?
I would assume 4, because they restructure deals like that, or 3 at minimum. But you're going to go, Joe, you're going to spend $50 million to bring in Dan Lanning?
No. If you're serious about winning football games.
No, they got to pay. Okay. I don't hate the Dan Lanning thing.
You can go get Mac Brown. I heard he's a pretty good coach.
Stop.
All right, now I'm being an asshole.
So let's do this. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag one more time. We'll come back and we'll transition Colorado to the Big 12.
Yep.
We'll talk about that next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. I wanted to say this because I told you so doesn't really not you, Joe, but you know,
I know.
I told you so doesn't really cut it with this one. But I told you so. Colorado has been making too many calls to too many institutions like Houston, people in Texas, for the South not to hear some rumblings about Colorado making a move. Joe, let's just recap very quickly. 2 months ago, I came on the show and said, look, I'm hearing Colorado's going to the Big 12, and got obliterated by it by Colorado people. Yes, Colorado actually has fans. No, we would have heard it by now. You know, the Pac-12 says we're getting a deal. Well, if you're getting a deal, they would have announced it already.
Yeah.
They're not the only one. And Brett Yormark, for what it's worth, okay, has done a pretty damn good job with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. There's not bigger brands that he can go and get, but he went and got markets, and big markets. Houston's a big market.
Cincinnati's a big passionate market. Tampa, Florida, big passionate market.
Right. So they're not done. I fully expect.
Orlando. Sorry.
Yeah, Orlando. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I fully expect Arizona to start getting in this mix. I expect Utah, Arizona State, for everybody to start having conversations, because, Joe, Pac-12 doesn't have a media deal. And if they don't have a media deal, I mean, teams are going to leave. The only thing for me that's so unreal is why there's not more Oregon talk, which is a different topic for a different day. But
yeah,
regardless, Colorado to the Big 12, I like it. They're coming back, and what a great move for them, because one thing is for sure, they have sucked the last 10 years. But Colorado made an investment in Deion and showed that they want to win. They will spend money to win. Let's see if they can actually start doing it. Because if they do, Joe, if they start winning, sheesh.
Colorado might be one of the most random teams to have won a national championship in the last 30 years. I mean, they've won a national championship.
Yeah, but they used to be dominant, though. The 90s.
Yeah.
Joel Klatt was a quarterback. Cordell Stewart. You know who else was one of the God dog it? He's the new Eric Bieniemy was also at Colorado. Yeah. So they have had really good players in the past. They suck.
They have a more recent national championship than Notre Dame does, which is nauseating to say publicly on the show. But
I mean, that's sad, dude. That's sad.
Yeah. What we already kind of really dissected this a lot, and I think, one, it's good for Colorado to jump ship. Two, it's going to set up more movement. And I think that in the aftermath of this announcement, there has been enough rumors floated out there. There's been a lot of rumors floated out there. I think that every piece of information should be taken with a grain of salt. I think that your Arizona take might be the most likely of all of them. I trust your sourcing more than, obviously, I trust like a random account tweeting about Florida State and Clemson. But it does really beg that question of who outside of it, doesn't even need to be in the Pac-12, who could be next to move to another conference. I really do think that with Colorado setting the precedent of, like, we're not happy. We don't like how things look. We think that we've got a lot more potential in us. We're going to move. I really, really think that Clemson and Florida State are going to take this very seriously. And we knew that they were doing that at the beginning of the spring when they held all those meetings with the ACC, and they were posturing a little bit because they were trying to see how much they could get away with by getting more money directed their way than some of the other programs. But I really think it would benefit both of those teams to consider a move to the SEC if the SEC will take them. And I call BS on Sankey saying that they're not looking to add more teams. That's your Mark said they weren't adding more teams. And here we are.
Well, no, Sankey. Well, I agree. They're going to lie. Okay. Because then they'd be poaching and there'd be legal ramifications. But I don't know if like a Florida State could come to the SEC right now. They owe like $70 million, Joe, in their TV buyout, which I'm assuming ESPN could waive, but they're not going to do that. Why would they do that?
Well, because the SEC owns, or ESPN owns the SEC network.
But they still have the same contract with everybody else. Meaning if Florida State and Clemson were to leave the ACC, Okay.
Yeah.
They still got to pay everybody else in the ACC the contract through 2036.
Yes.
So are you going to give Duke $70 million?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're going to give North Carolina $70 million? Texas's deal was up in 2024.
So that was why, yes.
That was the reason why they were able to flip to the SEC. Remember, a lot of people thought that ESPN or Texas and Oklahoma both were going to pay their way out to go to the SEC. And I'm going to tell you right now, Florida State and Clemson, if Texas is saying we can't do it, sheesh. You think Clemson and Florida State can? Because I'm going to tell you they can't. They can't. They can't.
I think they'd be fine in the SEC. I think that more than Oklahoma and Texas, they'd be fine in the SEC.
Don, I'm not anti-SEC. The team that I cover's in the SEC.
I think I would hope that's sarcastic. I mean, it's clearly no. It's a Bulldogs logo.
I'm way down there on the Chattahoochee Southern.
Right. I'm anti-SEC. Maybe that's what we're getting at here. I think that they'd be fine. But what is it, 2030 when that deal's up?
2036.
Oh, holy shit. Oh, wow.
At least that's
I wonder what kind of wheeling and dealing that would take.
This is not my reporting or anything. That's the article that Pete Thamel wrote in there.
Yes.
That it's till 2036. Joe, if it's a 2036, Santa Claus the apocalypse is coming.
Yeah, we don't even need to be looking at 2036. We're not even going to be.
I mean, you would have to go through 13 more Christmases.
Yeah.
Let's put it like this, Joe.
The Earth is going to have combusted by then. Let me
just put it in a process. Let me put it in something like this. Yeah. That contract ends. My son will have already graduated. The little one that runs in here going, Daddy,
I'm going to be almost 40 when that happens. Oh, that's insane.
Spare me. That's 46. I might not even be alive when this deal's done with.
Exactly. That's a good point. And I think that's why I'm kind of rooting for it to happen, but it maybe I'm jumping the gun there a little bit.
Yeah, you are.
The more realistic ones outside of the Arizona one, though, I really think that Utah and Oregon and Washington, they got to be trying to make moves right now. They can't be going down with the ship because how much money are they going to get annually? They're going to have the worst deal out of all of the other conferences. It's going to be a Pac-8 by the time this is all done.
Well, it could be. Okay. But they don't really have to make a move. They really don't have to make a move because
Oregon and Washington or the Pac-12 doesn't need to make a move.
Oregon and Washington, because the truth is they're going to get added by a conference. They're not going to be independent. They're not. And you know what will happen if they are? The same damn thing that happens.
So wait, you're saying that if the Pac-12 dissolves, they can just
the reason that they're not in a rush is because nothing's going to change for them.
That's true.
Somebody's going to pick them up. The reason these schools aren't freaking out, let me tell you why Colorado's freaking out. You want me to tell you why? The reason Colorado bucked is because their AD was live on Twitter Spaces. This is about 6 months ago, saying he gave every single dollar that they had to get Deion. And they ain't got no money.
No.
Oregon got more money than, God, I was about to say something. All of Live Golf, okay, with Phil Knight.
Yes.
They are not scared about, they got money, okay? Washington has, if you think Seattle, look, Joe, have you ever been to Seattle?
I have not. I have no intention of going to Seattle.
Okay, well, it was the only place I saw like 7 brothers that own like half of Seattle, okay? All of them own Lamborghinis. One of them, when we were in Seattle, he had a red Lamborghini. It said Tuesday on it. The license plate up front, Tuesday, okay?
That's clever.
They do not worry about that kind of stuff. Now, obviously losing 30 million is a big deal, but they could sustain because somebody's going to pick them up. I think it's the lower Power 5 teams like you mentioned, Utah, Arizona State, maybe a Cal, maybe a Cal if they cared enough.
But I don't know if they do. But I think Arizona State, Oregon State, Utah, those are the ones that are in Arizona, as we've talked about. I just think in general, though, I understand what you're saying. Like, they're going to be fine for booster money, but it would behoove them to look around, because if this deal comes up and they're making
look around, Joe, there's only 2 places they can call and talk to.
The Big Ten. I mean, they'd fit right into the Big Ten. That would be massive for them if they joined the Big Ten.
The only other thing, they know what's going on with the Pac-12. You know they're not going to the ACC or SEC. So hold on. So the only thing that what are we talking about shopping around? I mean, you got to make 2 phone calls. I mean, this ain't Morris Bar. This isn't,
that's shopping around a little bit.
Well, this ain't JG.
Fine, wait.
7-7 cash now.
Let me rephrase. It's like calling your ex-girlfriend, right when you realize things aren't working well with your current one. You're like, hey, baby, how you doing? How are things going on? Or you're calling that, that other cute girl that you were flirting with. Just, just be like, oh, are you still single?
Well,
you still looking around?
You must have done that because I'm a one-woman man. Always have been.
I'm a little more of a hoe than you are. But my point is that the Pac-12 deal could be like $20-30 million less than what they could get if they went to the Big Ten or even the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's the question.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with the Pac-12? I'm just sitting here saying to myself, like, what's going to happen? Are they going to make a move? And then if they make a move, who's the move? Who's the move?
San Diego State and Fresno State are the most logical
San Diego
moves
State just botched back. They said they're not doing it.
That's why they're in tough shit right now.
Well, and here's another thing. How bad do those numbers have to be for Pac-12 football for nobody wanting to watch?
That's true. Well, I think it's...
You would bring that up. You would bring that up.
It was funny.
I'm calling your girlfriend.
Don't do that. Don't get me in trouble. I have to bring up, though, the crazy take that I pitched that has been dismissed by a lot of people, including my boss, Braun. I was texting Braun about it, and I was like, if they really wanted to get themselves...
You say the ACC and Pac-12 merger.
He met with the ACC officials. He's meeting with ACC officials. If there is an intentional move by Clemson and Florida State to try and figure out a way out, why not have that conversation? And you don't need to play, because here's all you have to do. You have an East Division and a West Division.
No, you'd have an Atlantic Division. You'd have a Pacific Division. Let's not make this too complicated.
Okay, fine. I wasn't thinking like that, but you know what I mean. East Coast, West Coast.
Okay.
You play 1 or 2 of your games has to be cross country, but only 1 or 2. And then the championship is between the winner of those 2 divisions.
Let me ask a question. Have you ever driven an 18-wheeler truck full of pads across
country? It's once a year. Well, okay, wait. You'd only do it once a year because you'd have to host one team and then you'd have to play one team, just theoretically.
Have you ever driven an 18-wheeler from Seattle to Orlando?
It's doable. I mean, people play cross-country games all the time. Notre Dame plays USC, and I know that is not as far, but Notre Dame plays USC and Stanford every single year, and they alternate when they play them. Again, not as far, but that is a horrendously long drive.
Have you ever driven an 18-wheeler from Seattle to Tallahassee before?
I mean, those dudes, they know the job that they signed up for. The truck driving job that would take you 3 days.
It's crazy. God,
you could keep the stuff.
You don't have to pitch me because I'm still gonna hate it. Stop pitching me.
You could keep a hub of stuff for every single school.
Okay, I'm gonna say this one last time. Stop pitching me, okay?
Okay.
Because I still don't like it. I still think it's dumb. The problem is it's so dumb, it's probably gonna work.
Thank you. It's going to happen. I'm calling it right now. I have no sourcing. I have nothing. But I'm telling you right now, it is so stupid. And George Kliavkoff has nowhere to turn and has already been a poor decision maker. I'm willing to bet that this goes through.
Why would the ACC do it?
Because they're worried about losing their own teams. So they are the two worst Power 5 conferences right now. The two worst. The two weakest. And they're the only two conferences.
Would you have said that? Would you have said that before Colorado? I mean, let me ask you a question now. Let me just ask you very serious. Are they? Because as soon as Texas and Oklahoma exit the Big 12,
yes,
there is not a yearly – hold on. There is not a yearly title contender.
Yeah.
There isn't. So
but their pivot and their recovery has repositioned them as the third
your
best
recovery is getting Cincinnati and Houston?
Yes, absolutely.
No, what would happen here, the ACC doesn't have to do anything. They are fine where they're at because they got a long-term deal. The ACC legitimately does not have to do anything. Now, do I think that they will? I don't know that. All I'm saying is, okay, if you're the ACC, why would you do it? I mean, because then number one of those commissioners would be fired, okay? But, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Which is why it's going to happen.
Pac-12's got to figure it out, man. I mean, I just don't understand. It's so how bad are people just not watching Pac-12 football?
I don't think that's what it is.
Well, then if you got the eyeballs and numbers, then a TV deal is not hard to sell.
I think that the issue comes down to in a post USC UCLA world, most of the broadcasting entities are probably a little nervous, and I'm willing to bet in these negotiations, the Pac-12 thinks that they are worth significantly more than these companies are willing to pay. And I'm willing to bet that they're trying to undercut them by saying, well, you don't have the two LA teams that usually draw really big eyeballs. So why would we pay you the same price as these other conferences when those two teams just left? That's where I think the reason why this thing is extended and it's being drawn out so much is that Kliavkoff is not negotiating with the right approach.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
What else we got on the docket?
That was it. We're back tomorrow.
What were we talking about before the show? Oh, John Ruiz. No, spare me.
Yeah,
John
Ruiz. Frauds like Miami football. He's a fraud. They're frauds.
All right. Spitting. When you talk about teams, it's because you show way too much more bias on the show than I do.
No comment.
I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, Blake's the biased one."
Oh, I am absolutely more biased. I don't like Miami.
Doubt.
I don't like. Yeah. Oh, I will go after the teams that.
What's wrong? I mean, Joe, you go out every weekend trying to act like you went to Miami instead of being a Notre Dame fan. You go out with your girlfriend.
Stop, I don't go to clubs. Don't act like I don't. I don't do that shit.
I don't do that. Taking in the club, Joe.
I don't do that shit. No. I don't do that shit.
Are you trying to tell? Oh, damn. Somebody just said you don't talk about our mom. Don't talk about mamas up in here, man.
I'm ignoring that. I push back on me saying that I hate the rivals of Notre Dame because
you do.
I said Michigan's going to be undefeated this year. If I was a real hater, I'd be saying
you haven't played Michigan since Obama was in office.
I still hate Michigan, and I'm willing to bypass
first term. That. I don't think you've beaten Michigan since George.
No. We used to wax that ass. We used to kick.
Denard Robinson's still running.
No. Brian Kelly had Michigan's number. Brian Kelly used to get after Michigan.
Who did?
Brian Kelly did.
Where is he at
Wasn't
now?
Charlie Weiss? I don't know where he's at right now.
Oh. I know where Charlie Weiss's junior is. He's at Ole Miss.
Is he? What's his job?
He's an OC.
Is he?
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that's a good decision.
The offense didn't suck last year. Little Charlie's not that bad of an OC.
Yeah, he's probably a better play caller than his dad was. His dad is one of the most unlistenable on-air hosts in all of football. He's on SiriusXM NFL channel. Random final throwaway thought.
Yeah, I didn't know that. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow, guys. Y'all have a good one. Peace.